All right, we're continuing with the morning brachot and what we say as we wake up. Keshe choger chaguro, when he puts on his belt. So you'll see again in Hebrew that each article of clothing often has its own verb related to the noun. When he belts himself with his belt, Yavarech, you'll say the blessing, Ozer, who girds is really the best word. Yisrael, the Jewish people, Bigvura, with strength. Now the Ramah says, or lovesh ha'avneit, or if he wears the belt, hamafsik bein libo le'erva, that interrupts, that blocks between his heart and nakedness. The idea here is that a man cannot say a bracha unless there is something, some kind of waistband separating between his heart and the lower part of his body. And that's what he's saying here. Whether you're wearing a belt or whether you're wearing this belt or some other kind of belt, and the Mishna will explain some of the differences. You say this blessing of girding Israel. Keshemesim kova, when he places the kova, the hat, or mitznefet, or a turban, barosho, on his head, yavarech, he should say the blessing, or ter, who crowns, atara is a crown, who crowns Israel, but tifara, with splendor, with beauty. Kesheyitol yadav, when he washes his hands. Now, this literally means to lift up, litol, to lift up, but it means to wash his hands. Yivarech, you should say, al netilat yadayim, for washing the hands. Keshe yirchatz, when he washes. Now, yirchatz really does mean wash, rachatz. Panav, his face. Yivarech, he should say, ha-ma'avir, who removes, who causes to pass, right? In other words, to remove, who causes to pass, sheina, sleep, me'enai, from my eyes, v'chule, etc., v'yehi ratzon, and may it be your will, etc., ad baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you God, gomel chasadim tovim la'amo Yisrael, who does acts of kindness, gomel, bestows, or does, chasadim, kindness, tovim, good ones, good kindnesses, le'amo Yisrael, to his people, Israel. Ein la'anot amen achar ha'ma'avir shena me'anai, do not answer, anot, aniyah, to answer, do not answer amen after ha'ma'avir shena me'anai, the first part of the bracha, ad sheyachatom, until you will conclude, gomel chasadim tovim la'amo Yisrael, who bestows good kindnesses upon his people Israel. She'hakol bracha achati, since it is all one bracha. So in other words, all of the other brachot are one-liners, but this last bracha of Hama'avir Sheinai, who causes sleep to pass, is a long bracha. It's an entire paragraph. So don't, after the first line, think that he's finished the bracha and say Amen. Rather, go through and answer the whole thing. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll see all the Mishnah Brura. Second paragraph in the Shulchan Aruch. Achshav, now, today, mipnei, since, she'ein hayadayim nikiyot, the hands are not clean, v'gam mipnei amei ha'aratzot, and also because of ignorant people, ama'aretz, ignorant people, she'einam yodimotam, who do not know them, in other words, the brachot, people don't know the brachot. Nahagu, they have a custom, lesadram, to order them, bebeit ha-knesset, in the house of Knesset, in the house of gathering, in the shul. V'onin amen acharehem, and they say amen after them. V'yotzin yedei chovatan. Now this literally, yotzin, go out, yedei, the hands of, chovatan, obligation. You go out the hands of obligation. What does it mean to go out the hands of obligation? It means to fulfill your obligation. The imagery over here is like you are held by this obligation until you have gone out of the obligation. So what he's saying is, it used to be that everyone said these brachot at home as you're getting up and getting dressed in the morning, as we discussed. However, there are two factors that have since developed. Number one, the hands are not clean, that we go to sleep and we don't know where our hands have been, and our hands are not so clean when we wake up. And so therefore we need to wash the hands before we're saying God's name. And number two, there are ignorant people who don't know these brachot. They don't know what they are, and they didn't have Siddurim printed in those days. And so what they did was, they said the prayers, the brachot in the shul, that one person would stand up and say these brachot for everyone. Everyone would say Amen, and through this, they would fulfill their obligation. Our custom today is actually a little different, as we'll see in the Mishna Brura shortly. Number three, Chayav Adam levarech b'chol yom mea brachot lefachot. A person is obligated to bless every day mea 100 brachot lefachot at least. Every day, a person must say at least 100 brachot. Now, how are we supposed to do that? The Mishnah Brura will do the count for us. Number four, tzarech lavarech b'chol yom. You need to say the blessing every day. Shelo asani oved kochavim. That you did not make me oved kochavim, idol worshipper. Blessed are you, God, did not make me an idol worshipper. Shelo asani aved. That you did not make me a slave. Shelo asani isha. That you did not make me a woman. Why do we make that blessing of you did not make me a woman? We'll see more on that in a minute. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Brura as he takes us through all of these sections that we've seen. Ha-mechin, as you're starting to walk, God who prepares the steps of man. Uva aguda, and in a book called the Aguda, it's a different halachic work, Ketuv, it is written, Asher hachin, that prepares. Is it the preparer or the one that prepares? Different versions of that blessing. Ha-avnate, the belt. Avnate da hacha. Hacha is Aramaic for here. The avnate of here, the belt mentioned here, hu michnasayim. This is trousers. And so too, the avnate, the belt that is mentioned by the Shulchan Aruch at the beginning of chapter 91. Af al gav, even though, Aramaic for af al pi, in Hebrew would say even though af al pi, Aramaic it's af al gav, Develashon Torah, in the language of the Torah, perish avnate, hu hachagura, the explanation of the belt is the avnate is the belt, kedektiv uva avnate bad yachgor, with a linen belt they will gird themselves. That's referring to the Kohanim. Mikol makom, nevertheless, Balashon chachamim, in the language of our sages, lifamim korina michnasayim avnate. Sometimes we call the trousers the avnate. Ulakach nakad lashon lovesh velo choger. And that is why the Ramor says, if you just flip back quickly, that the Ramor says lovesha avnate, when you dress with the avnate. So avnate here is not, in fact, the belt, as I said, but trousers. When you dress with the trousers, otherwise it would have said when you belt yourself with the belt. Oter Yisrael. Now you say the blessing of when you put on your hat, who crowns Israel with splendor. Now the point that he's going to make is that in all of the other brachot, we don't make a reference to it being particularly or uniquely Jewish. We just say, God gives sight to the blind. No, it doesn't say sight to the Jewish blind. So that's a question here why he says, who crowns Israel with splendor, not just crowns people. His Kir Yisrael, it mentions Yisrael, bivrachazu, in this blessing, v'chein be'ozer Yisrael, and so too in girding the Jewish people's strength, the blessing of the belt. Ma she'ein kain, what is not so, be'acherot, with the others. Hata'am, the reason, she'hasha'ar, that the others, hu leha'anat ha'olam, that is for enjoyment of the world. She'akol shavin behem, all are equal in them. When it comes to seeing, Jew or non-Jew gets the same enjoyment and benefit from seeing. Ma she'ein kain, what is not so. Ba'elu shnayim, these two. Haim be'Yisrael lechud, they are for the Jewish people alone. Mishum tzniut, because of modesty. But we'll see modesty here means a little different to what we sometimes think of as modesty. But there's a kind of modesty that is unique to the Jewish people here, or has unique significance to the Jewish people here. Because the belt is so that it will not be that his heart sees his nakedness. The kova, and the hat, hu mishum tzniut, is also for modesty, kidde'ita, as it is. That's Aramaic for kesheyesh, as there is. B'Shabbat, daf kuf nun daled, in Gemara Shabbat, page 154. Kasei rosheich, cover your head. Mipnei, because of eimata damarech, reverence damarech, of your master. Cover your head for reverence of your masters. That's also called modesty. So these two brachot of putting on the waistband, the belt, the trousers, even underwear, and the bracha of covering one's head, those are uniquely related to Jewish values and obligations, as they express our separation between the more animalistic parts of the body and the more spiritual parts of the body, and also our reverence for Hashem when we cover our heads. Yehi ratzon, may it be your will, Hashem, shetargilenu b'toratecha lashon rabim, that you accustom us. That's the continuation of that long bracha that we mentioned, that you accustom us in your Torah, lashon rabim, in the plural. Not a personal prayer that you accustom me in your Torah, that you accustom all of us, that we become habituated in keeping Torah. Nahagu l'sadram, so because people didn't know the blessings, they started the custom of ordering them, of saying them in the shul. V'im mutar gam lehamtin b'virchat netilat yadayim, and if it is permitted also to wait for the blessing of netilat yadayim, l'sadra, to order it b'beit hakneset, in the shul. Ayin le'el b'siman vav u'v'ver halacha. Take a look in chapter 6 and in the Be'er Halacha. Now he continues, V'onin amen, and we would say, the people who didn't know the laws so well would listen up and say amen. Uv'di'avad, and b'di'avad, posto facto. Yeah, you should listen and say amen. But posto facto, afilu lo anu amen. Even if they did not answer amen, yotzin yadei habracha. They go out of the hands of the bracha. In other words, again, they fulfill their bracha obligation. Ukad lakaman, as we'll see later on, kevan shekivnu letzeit, since they intended to fulfill their obligation. So the idea here is that if a person intends to fulfill their obligation by listening to somebody else's bracha, then even if they themselves did not say amen, it's the act of listening that is sufficient. Yedei chovatan, fulfill their obligation. Va'afilu levaki motzi, and even for an expert, motzi, they fulfill, they take him out, fulfill his obligation, im mechavein bebirchato, if he intends in the blessing. In other words, this compensation of, I can say the blessing for you, and you can say amen and fulfill your obligation, applies not only to somebody who does not know how to say the blessing themselves, but even somebody who does. V'ayin le'el b'sof siman vav, take a look earlier at the end of chapter 6, but Magen Avraham she'avi b'shem lavush, Magen Avraham brings in the name of the lavush, lehachmir, to go strict, b'virchat hashachar, in the blessings of the morning, she'eino motzi b'pachot me'asara. You do not fulfill somebody else's obligation with less than 10. V'ayin lekaman b'siman mintet, take a look later on, chapter 59, B'Sef Daled, section 4, Be'er Halacha, in the Be'er Halacha, Sham ma shekatavnu odot zeh, what we wrote odot regarding this, uvizmanenu. Now, and in our time. So what does this, is this still the case? No. Haminhag, the custom, she'kol echad mavarech b'fnatzmo, that every person says the blessing by himself. V'ein hashaliach tzibur, and the congregational leader, in other words, the one doing the davening, motzi shum adam, does not fulfill the blessing for anybody. Shum adam, any person. In other words, today that we have Siddurim, everybody is able to say the brachot. So we made the move to say these brachot at shul, so we still say them as shul, part of the morning service. But it is not the prayer leader who says the bracha on behalf of everybody. It's everybody says their own bracha, even though the prayer leader says it, he doesn't say it was done with intention to fulfill the obligation for others. Brachot. Now you say, these should say 100 brachot every day. Hatam, the reason. Lefi shahayu meitim, because they were dying, b'chol yom, every day, me'a nefashot mi Yisrael, 100 souls from the Jewish people. Tikain David al-zeh, David instituted, so that's King David, instituted al-zeh, on this, levarech me'a brachot b'chol yom, to bless 100 brachot every day. Vehine, and behold, b'chol yom anu mavarechim od yoter mi me'a brachot. Every day we bless even more than 100 blessings. Ketzad, how does that work? How do you get to the total? How does that work? Ketzad, how? How does it work that we get to more than 100 brachot? Balayla kasholech lishan, at night when he goes to sleep, mavarech hamapil, you say the blessing of who casts, Hashem, who cast down sleep upon us. So that is number one. Uve shacharin, in the morning, mavarech, he makes the blessing al netilat yadayim, the blessing of washing the hands. That's number two. Vasher yatzara, number three. V'od tet zayin brachot b'birkat hashachar, and furthermore 16 blessings of the morning blessings that we've been going through. V'shalosh brachot al haTorah, and 3 blessings over the Torah. We'll come to those a little later. Ledat haRamah lakam and b'simon mem zayin sevav be'agah, according to the opinion of the Rav Moshe Isserles later on. Hooray, that side is a difference of opinion whether there are 2 or 3 brachot. But the Rav Moshe says 2 brachot. Hooray chaf bet. So that's 22. From the time you go to sleep at night until the time that you have said your morning brachot, 22 brachot. Uvirchat tzitzit utafilin. You say 1 blessing on tzitzit, 2 on tefillin. Hooray od shalosh. So that's 3 more. Lafim minagenu shemavarchin shtam ala tefillin. According to our custom that we say through 2 blessings on tefillin. Hooray chaf hey, that is 25. Ubaruch she'amar v'yishtabach. Baruch she'amar yishtabach in the Siddur. Part of the Psukat Zimra. Hooray od shtam, that's 2 more. Ubirkot kriyat shma shacharit v'arvit. The blessings of kriyat shma, saying of the Shema. In the morning and the evening, im birkat yiru einenu, together with the blessing of yiru einenu, may our eyes see. Einenu, our eyes, yiru, may they see. May our eyes see. Shmona, so that's another 8 to Baruch She'amar Yishtabach. Blessings of the Shema, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. Yiru einenu as well. And so that makes another 8. So that is, so that's the Plat Baruch She'amar Yishtabach. So that is now 4 blessings of the Shema in the morning, 4 blessings of the Shema in the evening. Yishtabach and Baruch Hu. Sorry, I lost count for a second. Baruch She'amar Yishtabach. Good. Blessings of the Shema, 2 before and 2 after, morning and evening. So that's another 10. Yiru einenu, so that's number 11. Okay, so he says, Hooray Lamadei, that gives you 35. Okay, I get 36, but let's go with that. The Nun Zayin brachot, and a further 57 blessings to Gimel Tfilot of the 3 prayers of the 3 Amidads, and each Amidah is 19 blessings, so 19 times 3. Hooray Tzadi Bet, so now we add that all up, we're on 92. Now in 2 meals that you sheso'ed, that you eat a meal, that's the noun, so'ed, to eat a meal. 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, right? They would eat 2 bread meals a day. Yesh tet zayin brachot, there are another 16 blessings. Ki b'chol suda yesh chet brachot, every meal gives you 8 blessings. Al netilat yadayim, washing your hands. Hamotzi, make no motzi. V'daled brachot sheba birkat hamazon, the 4 blessings of birkat hamazon when you bench. Ukeshihu shoteh kos b'birkat hamazon, and when you drink a cup at the end of birkat hamazon, what they would often do was they would bench over a cup of wine. So when you drink that cup at the end of birkat hamazon, mavarich lefanav, you'd say the blessing before it of Brura Bragafin, ula acharav, and after it. So that's 8 blessings every time you're going to have a meal. Now, hooray, basach hakol, behold, basach hakol, the total of all of them, total of all, kufchet brachot. So that's 108 brachot. Ve'im kain af b'yom ha'tain, and that's not even counting, as we'll see in a second, like Asher Yatzar, the prayer for going to the bathroom. Im kain, if that's so, af b'yom ha'tain, it's shechasar lo sudachat, where he is lacking one meal, gam kain makayem kuf brachot. You'll still have 100 brachot, even on a fast day where, say, you fast in the morning and eat in the evening, so you're still having your dinner, 8 brachot of the meal and benching, so you would nevertheless get 100 because you got 108. Over Yom Shabbat, now on the day of Shabbat, so time it is fast. On the day of Shabbat, chasar lo yud gimel brachot mehamea. You are missing 13 blessings from the 100. Kedeita b'magen Avraham ayin sham, because the Shabbat Amidah, instead of 3 blessings of 19, 3 Amidas of 19, you have 4 Amidas of 7. So you actually end up, instead of 57, you've only got 28. So you're nearly 30 short, so you're going to be in trouble. Al-Kain yireh lahashlim b'minei perot u'megadim. Al-Kain, therefore, yireh, you should see. In other words, you should ensure. Yireh, you should see, you should ensure. Lehashlim. Lehashlimam. To complete them. B'minei, with types of parrot fruit. U'megadim also means fruit, delicacies. In other words, snacks. So I have other snacks over the course of the day. I go to the brocha, I say the brocha on the kichel and on the herring and on the cheesecake and everything. I'm getting extra brachot in. Vim ein lo, if I have no delicacies, yotzei al pi hadchak, you go out, you fulfill your obligation, al pi hadchak, based on the pressure. In other words, in a pressurized situation when there's no other option, b'meshe yechavein lishmoa birkat haTorah ve'amaftir, with what you intend to listen to the blessings of the Torah and the maftir. In other words, every time somebody gets an aliyah, they say the blessings before and afterwards. If you need to, if you're running short on brachot, you can counter those. V'yane amen, and you'll answer amen, ukad lakaman, like later on, the Siman Resh Daled in chapter 284. The Katav HaMagen Avraham, and the Magen Avraham writes, V'lo yachnis atzmo b'chashash bracha she'ena tzricha, that you should not bring yourself into, atzmo yourself, chashash, the doubt, the concern of a bracha she'ena tzricha, of a bracha that is not needed, an unnecessary bracha, mishum mitzvat kuf brachot, for the sake of the mitzvah of 100 brachot. In other words, maybe I'll say to myself, I really want to fulfill this mitzvah, I really want to say more brachot. The only problem is, I'm 5 brachot short. So what I'll do is I'll eat an olive, and then I'll do something else. Then I'll say a new bracha and eat another olive, and then I'll do something else. Then I'll say a new bracha and eat another olive. Right? Those are really not necessary brachot. The one bracha could have sufficed for all 3 olives. So you shouldn't make tricks like that when you might end up saying unnecessary brachot simply in order to get to the total of 100. Over Yom Kippurim, and on Yom Kippur, Gam Kain also Yotzei b'shmiyat habrachot k'mo b'Shabbat. You fulfill also when you are listening to the brachot, just like on Shabbat. Ach b'Yom Kippurim, on Yom Kippur, achar kol hacheshbonot chasar lo od 3 brachot. On Yom Kippur, you're still going to miss 3 blessings because you're not having any meals on Yom Kippur. The Katav HaMagen Avraham, and the Magen Avraham wrote, the Yashlim, you should complete them, Ze b'vrechat hareach al habesamim, with blessings of smell over besamim, spices, fragrances. What I should do on Yom Kippur is make a point at some time to go and say borei v'nei besamim, to say blessing over the spices. Ach kol zeh shelo hisiach da'ato mile'ariach kol zman, but the entire time that he did not, shelo hisiach da'ato, that he did not remove his mind, his focus, milahariach, from smelling, asur lachzor ulevarech, it is forbidden to go back and say a new bracha, mishum bracha she'ena tzricha, because that's not necessary again, come back every 3 minutes to smell the same scent and say a new bracha over the smell, doesn't work. V'chein yuchal lehashlim b'virchat asher yatzar imizdamen lo, and so too you can complete them with the bracha of Asher Yatzar, who has formed, that's the bracha after the bathroom, im nizdamein lo, if it occurred, if it was prepared for him, if he needed to go to the bathroom. And it is possible that he fulfills his obligation based on pressure when he has intention to listen to the repetition of the shaliach tzibur, of the community leader, of the chazan. Shelo asani. Now you should say these blessings of "you did not make me." V'yezaher, you should be careful. Shelo yevarek, you should not bless. She'asani Yisrael, that you made me a Jew. In other words, these blessings are to be said in the negative, not in the positive. You did not make me an idol worshipper. As we find in some Sidurim, al yedei shibush hadfus, through the confusion of the printing. In other words, there's a printer's error that sometimes they put it as a positive thing. In other words, as the you did make me a Jew. Ki yesh omrin, because yesh omrin, some say, shebazeh, in this, lo yuchal levarech shuv, you cannot bless again. Shelo asani eved v'shelo asani isha, you did not make me a slave and you did not make me a woman. In other words, the one blessing of you made me a Jew incorporates within it a free Jew and a Jewish man. So it's no longer necessary to say, you didn't make me a slave, you didn't make me a woman, and so you've cut out the need for those brachot. And that's what we don't like about it. You did not make me an idol worshipper. Now if you first blessed, you did not make me a woman, yesh omrim, some say, to shuv, again, lo yuchal levarech shelo asani akum, v'shelo asani aved, that you can no longer bless that you did not make me akum, oved kochavimu, umazalot, an idol worshipper, and that you did not make me a slave. Ki isha adifa mishteihem, because a woman is better than both of them. Shteihem, both of them. Now this idea of better, I'll come back to. By better, we don't mean more beloved to God, more valuable in the world. But the Hebrew word adifa is easily translated as better. What he means is, if you said the blessing that you did not make me a woman, well then, obviously, you are speaking about a status that is in some way better than that of a slave and than that of somebody who isn't Jewish. Umimela, and automatically it follows, nichlal, it is included, hahoda'ah, the announcement, or the gratitude rather is a better one, the gratitude, ki bichlal matayim mana, because included in 200 is 100. In other words, if you've already expressed your gratitude for not being a woman, well then obviously you're grateful that you are not a slave, someone who isn't Jewish. V'cheinim berach shelo asani aved, and so too if you said that you did not make me a slave, lo yuchal levarech shelo asani goy, you can no longer bless that you did not make me a non-Jew. Ki eved adif mi goy, because a slave is better, again we'll discuss better, than someone who isn't Jewish. Techayav b'ktsat mitzvot, that he is obligated in some mitzvot. So somebody who is a slave is obligated in more mitzvot than somebody who's not Jewish, and this is one of the keys to what makes it better that we'll speak about in a second. Aval harbe achronim cholkin b'chol zeh, but many achronim, later authorities, argue with all of this. V'chein hizki ma'elia Rabbah, and Elia Rabbah agreed, the derech hachaim yuchal levarech, and they said that you may say the blessing even out of order. So on the one hand, you shouldn't say the blessing out of order because maybe you've said the higher status, so there's no need for the lower status. On the other hand, to say the blessing of out of order, maybe that actually is all right. Now, let's just speak about this idea of shelo asani isha, that you did not make me a woman. I just want to share with you two ideas on this blessing that today is quite controversial. And understandably, that why when we start saying that you did not make me this, you did not make me that, it certainly sounds like we're saying these others are inferior, that non-Jews are somehow inferior, that women are somehow inferior, and surely that's not the Jewish way or the Jewish message. So two ideas I'd like to propose. The first is a purely halachic one, based on what the Mishna Brura says over here, Chai b'ktsat mitzvot. It relates to mitzvah observance. It is an expression of gratitude to Hashem for the number of mitzvot in which we are obligated. A Jew is obligated in more mitzvot than a non-Jew. A free person is obligated in more mitzvot than a slave. and a man is obligated in more mitzvot than a woman. That's quite clear in halakha. So what he's saying is that you have given me more mitzvot. He's just phrasing it in terms of the package deal. The other idea, and this is one that I've thought of myself, is that it's not speaking about which is better, but which is better to be. See, they're different ideas. A man is not better than a woman, but it is better to be a man. What do I mean it's better? It is, you get more mitzvot. Look, it's certainly easier. We know that it's a man's world. It's certainly easier to be a man. So when we say better, we don't mean more valuable. We mean more conducive to a good life. And that's true in terms of the mitzvot that we do and so on as well. So while we're not saying that should be the case, that it's better to be a man. That is the case. That's the reality of the world, certainly throughout most of the history of the world. That's another idea of why we say that bracha. Let's wrap this up. Shelo asani aved, you did not make a slave. Ve'eved shenolad eved. Now what if a slave was born a slave and then later became a free person? Yesh omrim, some say, Delo yuchal levarech, gam ken bracha shelo asani isha. That he cannot, if a slave was born a slave, some say he cannot even make the blessing, gam ken also, cannot make the blessing of you did not make me a woman. Ki eved zil tfei meisha. Because a slave is worse. Now again, worse is used in the same context. Worse than a woman, meaning he does not have as many mitzvot, or it's worse to be a woman. V'yesh cholkin, and some disagree. That's it for today.